Okay, welcome everyone to the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I believe we have all of our committee members present. I'm just going to do a quick roll call to ensure that. Kamer?
Aye.
Swirsky?
Aye.
Baylor?
Aye.
And Samples?
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the previously held meeting. They were emailed out.
So moved. So moved. I make a motion to accept the minutes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can.
Okay.
What? Oh, I was going to do that next. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the last meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Okay. No nays. Should probably still do the roll call thing. So we'll go through it. Kamer?
Aye.
Swirsky?
Aye.
Baylor?
Aye.
And Samples?
Aye.
Good, thank you. Next, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get a motion that a motion to vote to suspend all council rules that require or contemplate in-person meetings and in-person voting before conducting any other business. May I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to do that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider that motion approved. Now what we'll do is we'll go into the list of regular legislation. We don't have anything that's up for a public hearing currently. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask that we take time on 1 through and including, I believe 7. Yes, 7. All those first 7 items are scheduled or will be scheduled for public hearings. Item number 8, though, is ordinance approving the sale of 787 vacant lot, Ruth Avenue to Sharon Butler McCray, determining said property is not needed for public use. Abraham Westcott, I believe, is here. I'll reference this.
Yes. Good afternoon, Akron City Council members. The legislation before you requests the city to sell city-owned land to Sharon Butler McCray. The property is not needed needed by the city of Akron. We request your approval to sell this property.
Very good. Thank you, Abraham, for that. Is there any questions from anyone? Any questions? Okay, very good. With that, what we're going to recommend is there a motion for a favorable report with suspension of the rules?
Motion for a favorable report.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Okay, very good. I'm going to ask the law department, do they want a roll call on everything?
Jeff, there were no opposition, so I believe it's reasonable to
Okay.
interpret that every member voted in favor, so you don't need to do a roll call.
Thank you.
Only if there's an opposition, I would recommend a roll call.
Very good, sir. Thank you. Okay, very good. We'll now move on to item number 9. And this is the ordinance authorizing the transfer of certain vacant properties, neighboring property owners that meet the criteria of the Mo-to-Own program, approving specifications of the Mo-to-Own program. We've had quite a bit of debate and discussion in reference to this. I know Mr. Valley is here in reference to this. Mr. Valley? You're muted, Mr. Valley. Can you unmute? Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I can.
Good. Yes, we talked about this last week at Monday night's council meeting. This is a great program. It's a program that has been in the works for quite some time. And this program will stabilize neighborhoods by transferring vacant properties to adjacent property owners who are more likely to take care of the land for next to their homes. Well-maintained vacant lots will help improve the neighborhood's character and appearance. It'll reduce the cost, City of Akron's cost with maintaining these properties, and it will also return these properties to the tax roll and increase property values. A lot of research was done on this program. We were looking at St. Louis, Philadelphia, Memphis, and even Columbus, Ohio. And in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago, we mailed out 960 letters that represent the 250 vacant City of Akron lots that were selected for the first round. And they have till June 15th to get back. It's a first come, first serve program. Whoever, responds the quickest, and we're going to have these properties cut by the adjacent property owners through this program here by late June. So this would really make a big difference for us. And I would appreciate council support and suspension of the rules today.
Thank you, Mr. Valley, for that report. Is there any questions from any committee members right now? Ginger Baylor, do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I had the opportunity to talk to one of the persons who got approved for the motor own, and they were so excited about having an opportunity to develop that piece of property that they're going to be given that opportunity to enhance, or shall I say. So they were really appreciative of the opportunity to do this. So thank you, Mr. Valley.
Great news.
Thank you, Representative Baylor. I see Mr. Swirsky has a question.
Well, just to add to what Ms. Councilwoman Baylor said, there are a number of people in my ward who have already contacted me about it. I really appreciate this program. It puts a lot more power into the hands of the people who live in the neighborhoods to control what happens in those neighborhoods, and to work with us on addressing vacant homes, vacant properties. This will be part of our overall strategy. I think it's great, and I appreciate the leadership coming out of the administration on this.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Any further questions? If there's not, I'd like to entertain a motion. Any other questions?
Councilman Fusco, I did raise the hand thing.
I'm sorry. We got two.
Okay.
No problem.
I just have a really quick question. So will this program sort of mirror a lot for a little? Because I've had some residents that they may want to share the lot with the neighbor to the left or the right. Are we still gonna make that open to residents who may want to share that? Do we know, John?
Not through the motor own, but the lots for little will continue.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from other council members other than committee members? Anyone? Okay, now at this point, I'd like to ask for a motion for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Motion for favorable report.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, very good. All those in favor of item number 9, Motor Own Program, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Very good. Hearing none, we'll then recommend favorable this evening, and gonna recommend time on items 10 through and including 13, short of any questions or comments, and ask that we now talk and discuss item 14 on the agenda, creating and designating an outdoor refreshment area within the city of Akron, establishing requirements to ensure public health and safety within a designated area. Mr. Hardy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of City Council. This, of course, is our proposed downtown designated outdoor refreshment area legislation. Per Ohio Revised Code, you've had a little over 30 days today to review. So have the community to offer their comments, suggestions, or concerns. And I also have on the phone today Susie Graham from Downtown Akron Partnership and Brian Angeloni from the Law Department, who helped to craft this. So if it pleases the committee, Mr. Chair, I think we'll just do Q&A if anybody has any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Thank you. Is there questions or comments from any of the committee members? Any questions or comments?
The only concern that I got when talking to people about the project is how will the consumption of alcohol be regulated? I mean, will there be a watchful eye on those who may be drinking or something like that?
Yes, so it's definitely something that we plan for and that other doors in Ohio have planned for. Certainly all of the rules and regulations around over-serving, et cetera, are still in place in Adora. But what's actually going to be additive for this particular geographic area of downtown is we will have more watchful eyes, meaning our safety plan. So we'll have increased patrols in that area to make sure that both patrons are safe as well as drivers coming through, et cetera. And we're still going to, of course, refine that safety plan as it gets up and running and as we see any challenges we may have. But yes, it's definitely something that we've planned for and that we feel confident that we'll be able to.
Thank you,
Very
Mr.
good.
Hardy.
Thank you. Mr. Swirsky?
And as Mr. Hardy mentioned, the police, there will be increased police surveillance and mingling with the crowd. The funding for that is going to come in part, at least, by downtown businesses. Mr. Hardy, if you want to talk to that question a little more. Mr. Hardy? Yeah. Well, I guess he does.
He's got it.
Okay.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes, sorry, if there was a question, I missed it.
Well, it's about the police, increased police protection will be provided in part and funded by downtown businesses, at least in part. If you could explain that a little bit.
Yes. So one of the aspects of this program is what we call the official cup. So per Ohio Revised Code, you cannot take a glass container out of one of our participating establishments. You have to have it in a plastic container. We have worked with Downtown Akron Partnership to establish an official cup program, which is similar to what Canton and other municipalities have done. And what this program does is we're going to, through Downtown Akron Partnership, provide participating establishments with biodegradable plastic cups that will have the rules and regs on the cup as well as corresponding logos. And we will charge an extra $1 to the customer for the privilege of taking that beverage outside. So those dollars will all be funneled back up to Downtown Akron Partnership to help pay for the additional police presence. And then any shortfall, should there be any, we don't plan for that now, but should there be any shortfall, the city will obviously make sure that there's adequate safety within the district. But to Councilman Swirsky's point, the official cup program will generate revenue to offset the cost of the additional safety.
Good. Any further questions from any council members? Any questions? Reference? I believe the official name is Dora of the program. So any other questions whatsoever at this point? Short of any questions or comments, I would like to entertain a motion for a favorable report with suspension of the rules, which probably don't have to suspend, but I'd like a motion.
Did Mr. Malik have his hand up?
Oh, I don't know.
Mr. Fuscon?
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's hard to see everybody. We're not used to this.
Well, it's back and forth, but yeah,
You bet.
absolutely, Mr. Malik. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that I received a number of comments and emails from residents after the proposal was first brought forward, I think a couple weeks ago, and all of them were positive. And
Good.
I just wanted to note that people did seem really excited about this and, appreciated the idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Malik. Any further questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Okay, very good. So again, I'll ask for a favorable report with suspension of rules. Is there a motion?
Motion for favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. So we will report that item out this afternoon. I'm sorry, this evening at 7 o'clock. Okay, very good. I'm going to recommend that we take time on 15 and then that we file item number 16. That was the Penske conditional use that we had handled a couple weeks ago. So all those in favor of filing item 16 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. So with that, I'm going to recommend that we take time on the balance of the agenda. Okay. And then we'll move into the new list of legislation. Okay, good. Now the first one is approving the sale of 521 Lindell Avenue to William and Lori Corrigan, determining said property is not needed for public use. Mr. Westcott or Mr. Hardy?
Abraham Westcott. Good afternoon, Akron City Council members. The legislation before you is a request to sell City of Akron owned property to the neighboring property owner. The properties are not needed for the City of Akron. We request your approval to sell this property. It's for green space.
Okay, very good. Questions from any committee members? Any questions? Any committee members? Any council representatives have a question or comment on this one? Hearing none. Very good. With that, is there a favorable report with suspension of the rules? Have that motion?
Okay.
Okay, Ginger Baylor made the suspension of the rules with a favorable report motion. Is there a second? Anyone?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against? The ayes have it. Very good. Thank you. Very good. Item 2, approving the sale of city-owned property to Dante DeAndrea and Aaron Baranek, determining said property is not needed for public use. Mr. Westcott?
Abraham Westcott, Office of Integrated Development. The legislation before you is a request to sell City of Akron property to Dante DeAndrea and Aaron Baranek to build a home. Mr. Andrea is a City of Akron employee working as a golf course attendant. The property will not be needed by the City of Akron. We request your approval to sell this property.
Okay, very good. Is there questions or comments? Mr. Skorsky?
Just the sale price would be sort of consistent with average costs across the board in other situations, or is it?
The sales price is $1 a square foot, and that's consistent with the Homes on Hickory program down in the Hickory neighborhood.
Okay.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Further questions or comments? Any council members have a question or comment? Okey doke. Seeing that, how about if we, I'd like to entertain a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
I make a motion for suspension of the rules.
Thank you, Representative Baylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Samples seconded. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. So now on to item number 3, which is the ordinance approving the sale of city-owned properties pursuant to the city's A Lot for Little program in order to facilitate the productive reuse of the property and to reduce the cost to the city taxpayers and maintain vacant lots. And who is here? Oh, Mr. Westcott again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Akron City Council members, the legislation before you is to request the sale of city properties to the neighboring property owners. The properties are not needed for the city of Akron. We request your approval to sell these properties.
Okay, very good. I'll just ask the question. The sale prices for these is commensurate with what we typically charge?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions? Any further questions from any committee members at this moment? Any questions about any of these properties? Nothing? Okay, very good. Any council members have a question? Any council representatives in the Zoom? Okay, very good. With this, how about if we entertain a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
I'll make such motion.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against?
Aye. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
You want to redo?
No.
Okay, so your first yes vote is a yes vote, in fact. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'll ask one more time then. Is there anyone wishing to speak or vote against this item? Any nays? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to, we'll report that I'm favorable this evening. Item 4, authorizing the mayor to implement the temporary summer patio program, approving the guidelines for the temporary summer patio program permit. And I see Mr. Hardy's here on this, I believe.
Yes, and Alyssa Gregg from OID. So we are proposing the creation of a temporary summer patio program and permit to assist locally owned small businesses, particularly food service businesses, in expanding safely their outdoor area in light of COVID-19 as they reopen. A few things to go through just briefly. This will be a free permit, no cost to the business. It's intended to help food serving establishments to maintain social distancing of their customers. However, non-food serving establishments are also welcome to apply to provide open space for their patrons. The city is not going to be closing any streets under this permit. However, businesses are welcome to apply to use sidewalks, alleyways, public parking lots, or street parking spaces for their temporary patio, and that would obviously be all approved through our permit process. In working with Summit County Public Health in partnership on this permit, tables for outdoor seating will still need to be spaced within 6 feet apart to allow for that social distancing. The application period, if council approves today, would begin as soon as council authorizes it, so as early as tomorrow. And the application period will close September 23rd. We anticipate and have worked towards a 1-week turnaround for these permits, provided all documents are turned in appropriately. And all permits under this program will expire November 4th at 11:59 p.m. Essentially, what we've done is we've created a sidewalk cafe permit on steroids, meaning that in light of everything that we've been going through and in wanting to help these establishments to welcome patrons back in a more safe and consistent way, we worked across city departments. I have to give a lot of credit and thanks to the Engineering Bureau, Service Department, as well as AFD and APD for chipping in with Alyssa to put this application together, as well as Summit County Public Health. And I think that one of the most interesting things for council to know is that the city of Akron made a commitment that we were going to have one application. And so we've been able to achieve that. So our businesses will have to apply one time for this permit, and through OID, we're going to have everyone check off so that there's no running around for our businesses going to Summit County Public Health, for the fire and all those types of things. This permit will also include the ability to erect a covering or an awning, which is typically a separate permit, but we're combining them all under this program. So again, hoping for a very fast and efficient process for our businesses to allow them to expand safely. And with that, we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy, for that report. This is an exciting program. I know in the past we've had discussion about this, but it's so great, especially now more than ever, I guess. We need something like this in place. The one question is citywide. I assume this is citywide, correct?
Yeah.
That's very good. I assume from reading the legislation, I wanted to ask the question. And secondly, can we entertain the possibility, assuming this takes off, which I'm hoping and praying that it does, can we look at expanding into a lot of times you'll see places in other cities that have programs such as this where, you know, that they'll have like outdoor heaters, so on and so forth, perhaps looking at maybe doing this like a little like fall, halfway through fall and maybe late spring and expanding those dates a little bit, which we can always amend, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, absolutely open to it. And we would come back to council for that authorization, but we'd be more than happy to do that if the businesses see a lot of value.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a great program, something that I know we all have, it's going to sound bad, but an appetite for to see this in Akron. So questions, any questions from committee members, Mr. Swirsky?
Well, it's just more of a comment. I mean, Cleveland passed a similar ordinance last week. It's something that a lot of businesses have already been doing. We're just making it easier at a time of crisis or in an urgent time for small businesses survival. We're going to make sure that help is on the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Other comments or questions from committee members and or council representatives at this time? Any questions or comments from anyone?
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine, Ginger Baylor. Please go forward.
I was just gonna say, I commend the group that put this together and the forethought and thinking of the businesses and how to keep them vibrant and operating under the guidelines of safety and health for people who will be participating. So thank you so much for this, because it's good to be outside. Fresh air is always good. We've heard that, especially during this pandemic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Malik?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hardy, I know that this proposal, fits in also with sort of broader work that OID and across the city is being done to figure out how to use public space and, improve our neighborhood business districts and that kind of thing. As we go through this program, I was just thinking, is there going to be thought as to sort of going out and seeing how this space is being used and whether it makes sense maybe to use going forward, that it's sort of a seasonal or summer thing that, those kinds of things are used?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think will be really beneficial for the permit program is that we in OID, but also you as council members, will be able to track and see who's using it. We can go out, we can see how people are using the spaces. And of course, this doesn't circumvent the permanent patio permitting process. So if someone tests something out this summer and they decide this is working really well, they can certainly apply to make it something permanent and we can review that. But we've also, to your point, had discussions that maybe this is an every year thing that we do in the summertime to help people spread out a little bit, because I think we've all learned a lot coming through COVID. So definitely not off the table, and we'll be able to monitor this program and how people use these spaces through this permitting program as opposed to sort of one-off. So we're anxious to see a lot of use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Ms. Connor, and then Mr. Swirsky.
Will the permit be online in the OID's office?
Yes. So Alyssa, do you want to just briefly talk about Submittable?
So about a year ago now, maybe a little less than that, we purchased an online portal called Submittable through which we can take applications. So a day last week getting it up and running. So we have an account that can be reached called akronohio.submittable.com. And this application has a direct link, which will be akronohio.gov/10 so tomorrow at 10 a.m., if approved today, the application will go live. It shows the guidelines for the program. You're asked to make an account. All you need is a name and email address, only so that we can contact you again. All messaging gets done through this portal. All reviewing gets done through this portal. Acceptance gets done through this portal. We've used it on a ton of different programs at this point, and it's working very well for us. So I think it's the perfect tool for this program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Swirsky?
Well, I think Mrs. Connor had something. Did you want to say something?
No, I just said thank you.
Okay. I just want to add, I'd like to see us pass this tonight, that I really appreciate you being sensitive to the needs of the small business people, and especially the fact that you've streamlined it, made the application process very coherent, very user-friendly, and the promising a turnaround time of about a week. That is great. And good work, everybody. Good work. Yeah.
Thank you. Very, very good. If you can hold that thought, Mr. Swirsky, it sounded like a motion, but I want to ask if there's any other questions or comments. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Anybody? Okay, going. Okay, very good. With that, Mr. Swirsky, your motion is for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Motion for favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Can I get a second out there?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hardy. That was we're excited about this program and what you've done with, especially on the agility side. It seems as though you're going to be quick about it, and it's going to be easy to use. So thank you for that. Okay, item 5 is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement and grant an easement on city-owned property to the Ohio Department of Transportation to provide access for improvements to the state of Ohio for State Route 422 in Geauga County. Mr. Luddle, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Up in Geauga County, this is east of the Ladue Reservoir where the Geauga River intersects with 422. We own the land along the Geauga River, and they are widening the bridge of 422 over the river. And by doing that, they are going to reconstruct our driveway approach. We lease some land right there on the river to a canoe livery. So they're going to pay for all the improvements. The $1,700 that you see that they're going to provide us is for us to redo the sign and to do some landscaping around the entrance once they're completed.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Luddle, for that report. My question to you is this a temporary easement or a permanent easement?
Well, we're not actually giving them, this is a permanent, but this is just for them to move our driveway approach along the, they're paying for the improvements. And then we're giving them an easement because they're widening the bridge.
Gotcha. So it's a temporary easement.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, good. Questions from any committee members? Any questions? Okay, any council representatives have any questions or comments right now? Any questions or comments? Okay, with that, how about if I get a favorable recommendation with suspension of the rules?
Motion. I'll make that motion for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Thank you. Is there a second out there?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. So thank you. This is our first committee meeting via Zoom. So thanks everyone for being part of it. Certainly appreciate it. Short of any questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So move.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you.